The boarding area was the same as always: shuffling feet, coffee cups balanced on laptops, children tugging at distracted parents. Nobody noticed her in the line. She was quiet, blending into the rhythm of travel, ticket in one hand and a paperback tucked beneath her arm. When the scanner beeped and the agent smiled, she gave the same polite nod as everyone else and slipped down the jet bridge. To most, she was just another traveler with a long day ahead, sliding into her assigned seat, 7A, the window. The flight lifted without ceremony. The engines hummed their steady song, the seatbelt sign blinked off, and the cabin settled into the trance of mid-air routine. People pulled out tablets, headphones, snacks from crinkling bags. A businessman in 7C opened his laptop before the wheels had even left the ground. Across the aisle, a mother soothed a fussy baby. It was all unremarkable, the kind of scene that repeats across 1,000 flights every day. She barely moved. Her eyes lingered on the horizon beyond her window, calm and still in a way that seemed unusual. Occasionally she would turn the page of her book, her fingers steady, her expression unreadable. No one gave her a second glance. She was background, part of the anonymous crowd you forget as soon as you land. Then, 3 hours in, the air shifted. It began as a low vibration in the walls of the plane, a hum that didn't belong to the engines. A child in row 14 pressed her nose to the glass. "Daddy," she squealed, pointing, "look." Out of the white glare of the afternoon sky came two sleek shadows, fast and deliberate. The cabin tilted as passengers craned toward the windows. Cameras lifted. Murmurs rose like static, rippling seat by seat. The shapes grew clearer. F-16 fighter jets, their wings cutting through the clouds in perfect, practiced formation. For a moment the cabin held a mix of awe and unease. Fighter jets weren't something you expected to see at 30,000 feet. Some passengers exchanged worried looks. Others whispered about emergencies, threats, possibilities no one wanted to name. The businessman in 7C snapped his laptop shut and leaned across her, peering through the small oval window. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered. But she in 7A didn't flinch. Her eyes locked on the gray silhouettes outside, and something flickered in her gaze, a recognition that no one else could read. The hum of the jets grew louder until it seemed to press against the glass. And then, in one fluid motion, the impossible happened. The F-16s broke formation. Gasps scattered through the cabin. People fumbled with their phones, some filming, others frozen in stunned silence. The jets dipped their wings, deliberate and precise, a gesture no one aboard the commercial flight understood, no one except the woman in 7A, who sat very still as the sky itself bowed to her. Her name on the passenger manifest was Elise Ward. Nothing more, nothing less. Just a woman in her late 30s who looked like she belonged to the quiet crowd, the kind of traveler who didn't complain when the beverage cart took too long or sigh when the Wi-Fi glitched. To anyone who glanced her way, she seemed unremarkable, a tired professional maybe, or a teacher heading home. The truth of who she was, and what she had once done, was hidden beneath the plainness of her posture and the book resting in her lap. Her daughter knew, of course. The girl was maybe 9, bright-eyed and restless, her legs swinging under the seat in 7B. She had been told not to talk about it too much, that mommy used to fly planes but didn't anymore, and that some stories were better saved for later. But children don't keep secrets the way adults do. Their honesty arrives unfiltered, tumbling out in whispers and wide-eyed wonder. It happened when the flight attendant crouched down to ask if the girl wanted a refill of juice. The child leaned forward, lowering her voice as though she were about to share the most important truth in the world. "My mom used to fly those planes," she said, pointing at the fighters outside the window. The attendant blinked, smiled politely at first, and then studied the girl's face. She followed her gaze to the woman in 7A, who sat utterly still, eyes fixed on the jets with a faraway expression. Something in that look gave weight to the child's words. Without another word, the attendant moved quietly to the galley, her expression shifting from routine professionalism to something sharper, heavier. Within minutes, the cockpit knew. And the message didn't stop there. It reached the escorting pilots, 2 young men tasked with routine airspace security, who now realized that the passenger on board wasn't ordinary at all. One of them had trained under her years ago. He remembered her voice crackling over the radio in a desert sky, sharp and calm under pressure, guiding his shaky hands when he thought he would fail. She had been more than a teacher, she had been a lifeline. Now, hearing her name again, he made a request. The tower cleared it. The salute was arranged. Inside the cabin, confusion grew into a restless buzz. Passengers whispered theories, some nervous, others awestruck, while cameras clicked against the glass. The businessman beside her muttered something about VIPs and government secrets. But Elise remained silent, her fingers tightening just slightly around her daughter's small hand. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't wanted it. She had left the uniform behind years ago, along with the weight of the sky and the ghosts it carried. And yet here it was again. Acknowledgement arriving not in medals or ceremonies, but in wings of steel breaking formation, dipping in a gesture older than words. Her daughter squeezed her hand and whispered, almost reverently, "They're here for you, aren't they, Mom?" Elise closed her eyes for a breath, her throat tightening. She opened them again to the streak of silver against the endless blue. For once, she didn't deny it. The roar outside deepened, a living thunder that pressed into every ribcage on board. Passengers craned necks, fumbling for a better view as the fighter jets drew closer. Then, in a movement so synchronized it seemed rehearsed by the heavens themselves, the two F-16s tilted their wings downward in salute. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Someone clapped a hand over their mouth. A soldier returning from leave, seated near the back, stiffened instinctively into a salute of his own. It was not a maneuver for show. It was a gesture of honor, a recognition given only to one of their own. And though no one in the cabin understood it fully, they felt it, like a current passing through the air, stirring something unspoken in every chest. The jet on the left surged forward, cutting across the nose of the commercial plane. The movement was clean, sharp, deliberate. As it climbed into the light, sunlight glanced off its steel body in a flash of silver that looked almost holy. The businessman in 7C whispered, "That was for her," before he even realized he'd said it aloud. The pilot's voice came through the intercom then, steady but weighted with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, pausing as though to steady himself. "Today, you are flying with someone very special. Seat 7A belongs to Captain Elise Ward, a decorated combat pilot who served this country with extraordinary courage. Those jets outside aren't here by chance. They're here to welcome her home." The cabin erupted. Applause thundered from every row, some passengers standing despite the seatbelt sign. Cheers slipped freely down faces of strangers who minutes before hadn't even known her name. A woman 2 rows behind whispered, "God bless you," while the soldier in the back straightened to his full height and saluted again, this time with tears burning his eyes. Elise sat frozen, her face pale but her gaze unshakable, locked on the disappearing trail of the fighter as it climbed away. Her daughter pressed close, whispering with a tremor of pride, "I told them, Mom. I told them it was you." Elise's lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite sorrow, but something deeper, the look of someone carrying memories too heavy for words. The rest of the descent passed in reverent quiet, as though the entire plane was holding its breath. No one rushed for the aisle when the wheels touched down. No one grumbled about delays or baggage. Instead, the passengers stood one by one, clapping again as Elise rose from her seat. The applause followed her down the narrow aisle, strangers reaching out to touch her arm, to whisper thanks, to acknowledge her not as a ghost from a forgotten war but as someone flesh and blood, here among them. At the door, Elise paused. She glanced once more at the sky, at the contrails fading into blue, and for a moment her daughter thought she might cry. But Elise only straightened, her shoulders squaring with a quiet dignity. She had boarded the flight as just another traveler, a woman with a book and a window seat. She stepped off as something more, not because of what she had done long ago, but because the sky itself had remembered. And in that remembrance, so did everyone else.